You ever had one of those days where everything in your life already feels like it's falling apart, and then someone does that one thing that finally breaks you? Because that's exactly what happened to me the night my cheap frozen pizza burned to ashes, thanks to a selfish roommate. But what he didn't know was that his chicken dinner was about to turn into charcoal justice. If you've ever had someone disrespect you when you were already at your lowest, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real stories of revenge that hits where it hurts. Now, let's get into tonight. Everything finally boiled over. Years ago, I decided to start my life over. I'd quit a dead-end job and gone back to school, hoping to pivot into a better career. Money was tight, and when I say tight, I mean count every coin tight. So I rented a room in a shared student basement apartment, old, dimly lit, with cracked tiles and the faint smell of mildew that never went away. Each of us had our own locked room along a narrow hallway. We shared one kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and a Wi-Fi connection that we all chipped in for through e-transfer. We weren't friends. We weren't even acquaintances. We were just broke strangers pretending not to exist in each other's lives. And that was fine, until one small act of disrespect changed everything. It was around 10 p.m. I had just come back from a long day, lectures, lab work, and an evening shift at a local store. I was exhausted, hungry, and running purely on caffeine and hope. I opened the freezer and saw my one small comfort, a frozen pepperoni pizza. It was cheap, but for me, it felt like luxury. Something I'd saved for a long day like this. I preheated the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, slid it in, and set the timer for about 25 minutes. Then I went back to my tiny room, 4 walls, 1 flickering bulb, and a second-hand desk, to scroll through notes while the pizza baked. About 10 minutes later, I heard it, the loud, metallic creak of the old oven door opening. It was unmistakable. That oven squealed like a dying animal every time someone touched it. A few seconds later, I heard a door shut somewhere down the hall. Didn't think much of it. Maybe someone was just checking on something. But when the timer beeped and I went to grab my food, my heart sank. The pizza was blackening at the edges. Smoke curled up from the crust. And sitting above it, on the upper rack, was a huge tray of raw chicken breasts. At first, I was just confused. Then I noticed the oven temperature, 425 degrees Fahrenheit. He not only shoved his food in there mid-bake, he'd cranked up the heat to suit his own meal, completely ignoring mine. I stood there, frozen, staring at the bubbling cheese turning into charcoal. That pizza cost me $6, which may not sound like much, but when you're surviving on instant noodles, it hurts. I pulled it out, cut a slice, and took a bite anyway. It tasted bitter, hard, and burnt, exactly how my pride felt in that moment. Inside, something just snapped. All I could think was, you couldn't even ask? You couldn't leave a note? You just decided your chicken was more important than my dinner? I sat there for a while, chewing that awful burnt pizza, feeling the frustration rise like a storm inside my chest. My head buzzed with all the things that had gone wrong lately. Failing assignments, unpaid bills, a broken laptop charger, and now this? This was a cherry on top of my pathetic little life. Then came the moment of clarity. That sharp, cold calm that sometimes hits right before revenge. I looked at that oven. I looked at the chicken, and a dark little voice in my head whispered, "He wanted it hotter, right?" I stood up, walked back to the oven, and turned the knob slowly. 500 degrees Fahrenheit. The max. The oven hummed louder, the metal ticking as it heated up, the smell of chicken fat already starting to sizzle. I walked back to my room, shut my door, and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then I heard it. Beep, beep, beep. The smoke alarm screaming through the hallway, followed by panicked footsteps. A door flung open, and then pure music. Oh, come on. What the? I opened my door just a crack. Smoke drifted through the air. There he was, my oh-so-busy roommate, waving a towel at the alarm, coughing, staring down at a tray of completely blackened, smoking chicken breasts. The baking sheet was scorched. The meat looked like something dug out of a volcano. I stepped into the dark hallway, just enough for him to see my silhouette. My voice calm, almost friendly. "Everything all good, bud?" He froze, eyes wide, stammered something like, "Why, yeah, it's fine, man, just a little burnt." I nodded. Good to hear. Then I walked back into my room, shut the door, and smiled for the first time that week. He never spoke to me again, not even a passive-aggressive text in the group chat. For the next few weeks, the kitchen stayed spotless. No one touched the oven without asking. And me? I finished that burnt pizza, every bite bitter but satisfying. Because sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it's just silent, smoky, and served extra crispy. I moved out not long after that. Got a better apartment, a better job, a better life. But I'll never forget the night I took back my dignity, one overcooked chicken at a time. That's the thing about small injustices. They pile up quietly until one day you just stop taking them. And when you finally snap, it's not about revenge anymore. It's about proving to yourself that you won't be walked over again. That night, I didn't just burn chicken. I burned the part of me that used to stay silent. Maybe the universe doesn't always hand out justice. But sometimes, if you're clever and just a little bit petty, you can create your own version of karma. So yeah, fuck your chicken. If that story gave you that sweet justice feeling, hit the like button. It really helps the channel out. Tell me in the comments, what's the pettiest but most satisfying revenge you've ever pulled off? And don't forget to subscribe, because I've got way more stories like this one, where karma comes back extra crispy.